Hey guys, it's Dad with Dad's Guide to Adulting. I hope you're doing well and that you're having a great day. In this video, which is part of our section on relationships, we're going to be talking about love languages. I can tell you, when I was a younger man, if somebody had used that expression in front of me, I would have been like, love what? Languages who? I instantly would have been like, what in the world are you talking about? And why is this important for me? And why do I want to hear it? The truth of the matter is, this is one of the single most important things that you can learn to help make sure that you have a good relationship or a happy marriage. I learned this way too late in life, but I actually learned it in time, thankfully. If you learn it early in your adult life, you can save yourself a lot of heartache, a lot of fights between you and your partner and your spouse, and end up having a much happier relationship. So let's talk a little about the love languages. Where does that come from? Well, the basic lessons on love languages were set out in a really good book by a gentleman called Dr. Gary Chapman. It's called The 5 Love Languages. Here is the basic lesson that you need to know. There are certain ways, methods by which people give and receive love. We all have our preferences. People are different on what they want to receive. If you love somebody and you want to have a good relationship with them, you can't make the mistake of giving them love in the way you want to receive it. You have to give it in the way that they want to receive it. Learning what your partner's love language is and making sure they know yours is critically important. So what are the love languages? Well, people describe them differently in different places, but Dr. Chapman's formula is a pretty good one. And there are basically 5. They boil down to acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, gifts, and quality time. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time diving into these. They're pretty obvious, but let's talk about them very briefly. Acts of service. That basically means doing things like the dishes and cleaning up the kitchen, making your bed, doing the laundry, dusting the furniture. These are the things that one person does to take care of the house or tasks or duties so that the other person doesn't have to do it. You're taking it off of their to-do list. You're showing that you love them by making them a meal or cleaning up afterwards. And in the process, you're removing a source of aggravation for them because you've gotten it done, they can go relax. Those are acts of service. Words of affirmation. That basically means telling people that you are proud of them, that you think they are wonderful, that you love them, that you appreciate them. People for whom words of affirmation are important need to hear those things from their lovers or their spouse regularly. I didn't say that right. I don't have a spouse and a lover. Wow. Walk into that one. For people for whom words of affirmation are important, they need to hear it fairly regularly. Then there's physical touch. Well, physical touch can mean sex, but it usually means actually just more than that. Hugs, snuggling, putting a hand on someone's shoulder, sitting on the couch and just sitting next to them holding hands. It means you love someone and showing that you love them by physical contact. Quality time means for a period of time putting everything else aside, putting your phone down, not looking at the TV, not watching a football game while you're having a conversation. Get rid of the internet. Just spend time with the other person, go out, create some memories, go for a walk, go for a hike, go for a boat ride, creating some memories with quality time. Gifts, obvious. Some people like to get flowers, they like to get clothes, they like to get gifts, they like to get jewelry. What usually matters there is not the amount of money that's spent, it's the mere fact that you thought enough of them to go do it. So those are the love languages. Now, it took me a long time to learn about them. Sometimes it takes, particularly for men, getting hit upside the back of the head to actually pay attention to it. I'm going to tell you 2 quick stories because I think they're helpful. The first occurred, believe it or not, in church. There was a series of sermons once where my wife and I attended. It was about love, sex, and marriage. No kids allowed. And they had a sermon where a woman minister came in to talk to men about the things that were important to women. And then they had another male minister come in and talk to the women about what was important to men. The woman minister was very entertaining. She was very funny, but she basically spent some time focusing on acts of service. And then she said, out of the blue, "Men, I want you to pay attention here." She reached down and pulled out a toilet scrubber. It was a big sigh of relief, but also a lot of laughter, because basically what she was doing was teaching us that most women particularly like acts of service. They like their husbands to help clean up around the house and those sorts of things. So I think that was a very good lesson and a very funny way for us to learn it. The second story occurred actually in our house. My wife is a nurse, and she was having a party of her coworkers in the house, a bunch of nurses, and I was sort of helping to serve and clean up the kitchen a little bit. And we have a kitchen counter that sort of surrounds our sink. And towards the end of the party, I was doing some dishes in the sink, and there were 3 or 4 of her coworkers standing around the counter. It started to get kind of quiet. And I looked up and they were all sort of looking at me. And then one of them, the comedian in the group, said, "That's the sexiest thing I've ever seen." Well, I just had light bulbs going off. I gotta tell you, nobody's ever called me sexy based on the way I look. But if I can get sexy status by cleaning the dishes, guys, this is a really good lesson. I highly recommend that you learn that. So I've been doing dishes a lot ever since then. It was a particularly good lesson. So here's one reason why these love languages are particularly important. Too many couples never focus on this. They never learn the love lesson. And even when they love each other and try to take care of the other person, it fails because they are giving what they want to receive rather than what their spouse wants to receive. If someone for whom physical touch is everything wants a snuggle or a hug from their spouse, but the spouse decides to come home and cook dinner for them instead and say, "Here's your plate, honey," but that's not what the spouse wanted, the spouse that wanted the hug or the snuggle is going to be upset. The spouse that thought they did something nice by cooking dinner, doing an act of service, is going to be upset. And you have two people who love each other and want to make it work out, and it doesn't. So if you don't pay attention to love languages, even if you love your spouse and they love you, you may end up making each other miserable by never giving the other person what they want. It is important to be generous with your spouse or your boyfriend or your girlfriend, but it's also important to be smart. You have to be generous with the right things, the right kind of love. So, if you want your relationship to work, learn what your spouse's or your boyfriend or girlfriend's love language is, let them know what yours are, and make sure that you try to give that to each other. It's well worth spending some time on that. On our website, we have a couple of links to Dr. Chapman's book and also to a quiz that they offer to allow you to sort of determine what your love languages are. It's worth taking and trying to figure that out. The bottom line is, remember, if you want a happy relationship, give love in the way the other person wants to receive it, not the way you want to give it. That's all for now. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, remember, you got this.